So I've got another horror anthology to talk to you about today. It's called The Uncanny. It came out in 1977, and basically the whole idea of it is it's an anthology film where all of the segments center around cats. Welcome to the Cobweb channel, everyone. My name is Daniel, and this is Poe. This is my cat, my black cat, obviously named after Edgar Allan Poe. We actually have two cats. The other one's an orange tabby, who's a little bit more my wife's cat. This one is more mine, this guy. You wouldn't really tell, but he can probably tell he's on camera and he's a little freaked out. He might also be freaked out by my YouTube voice. So recently on this channel, I talked to you about all of the Amicus anthologies, British horror anthologies that were all made by Amicus Productions, a fantastic string of movies. And this one is often mistaken as an Amicus film because it's very similar. I mean, it stars Peter Cushing. Peter Cushing is in almost all of the Amicus anthologies, and it's also produced by Milton Shabotsky, who was one of the co-founders of Amicus, who co-produced all of those films. But this is actually not an Amicus film. It was done by a company called the Rank Organization. That's a fantastic name. And it opens up on a city street with a really great autumnal vibe. Actually, this whole movie feels very fall, very autumn, which is really great for me right now. It's August then when I'm filming this and putting this out, and I'm just getting really hyped up for fall. It's my favorite season. So this is actually a really good movie to revisit during this time. And we follow Peter Cushing. He goes to visit Ray Milland. Yes, Ray Milland is in this movie, a fantastic classic Hollywood actor from movies like the Oscar-winning The Lost Weekend, one of my favorite classic haunted house movies, The Uninvited, and the great and possibly underrated Hitchcock film Dial M for Murder. So yeah, he was in a ton of movies. It's really cool to see him in this. And it turns out he's a publisher and Peter Cushing is a writer. Cushing is actually a writer of conspiracy theory books.
As a matter of fact, I'm not convinced that the public is ready for the story yet.
You said that about my book on flying saucers. Now everyone believes it. And my theory regarding the pyramids.
And now he has written a book about cats, and specifically how they are all evil. They want to take over the world. They are exploiting the human race, and he just has to tell the truth of how horrible these creatures are. What do you think about that theory, man? You buying it? Yes, it's a ridiculous, very silly setup for an anthology film, but it's also very funny and kind of quaint.
But the most fiendish, the most fascinating, the most terrifying creature of all may be waiting for you round the next corner.
And we pretty quickly roll into the first segment. It turns out all of these segments are going to be stories about how cats have done evil things throughout history. And this first one is called London 1912. All of these are named after the place they take place in and the year. And this one is about a rich old woman, and she talks to her lawyer about how she wants to redo her will. She wants to cut her nephew out of her will, who's just been living off of her, milking her for all of her money, and she's sick of it. She wants to leave her money to the only true family she's ever had, which are cats. Yes, she's absolutely serious that she wants to leave her entire wealth to her cats when she dies, which, by the way, isn't that the same plot of the Disney movie, The Aristocats?
Treasures, jewels, and...
Oh, no, George, to my cats.
To your cats?
I have no idea how this works. What are these cats going to do with this money? Like, are any lawyers watching? Can you actually do this? I'm genuinely curious. But she has a very pretty housekeeper who it turns out is being romanced and manipulated by her nephew. And the housekeeper goes to tell her nephew about what's going on. And he says, hey, look, when she dies, I'm going to be rich. So if you want to marry me and be rich, then you got to go in and destroy that new will. So she's pretty quickly manipulated into it. She's like, okay. And she goes in, breaks into the safe so she could destroy the will, but the old lady wakes up just in time. And this is where our pretty little housekeeper crosses the line. At first, we kind of feel like she's just being manipulated by this nephew, and we're not sure how much we really dislike her. But she murders the old lady because the old lady witnessed this, and she says, you deserve to go to hell, and I'm going to send you to jail. And she sticks a pillow over her face. And there's this great line that she says when she does it.
I was hoping I wouldn't have to.
Which is interesting. It means she considered this. She considered that if this woman wakes up, I'm going to kill her. I hope I don't have to, but I will. So it's a little bit more premeditated than it seems at first. There's this moment at this point that I really like, where after she kills the old lady, she sits back up suddenly, and it's this great little jump scare, this Michael Myers sit back up, but with a little bit more screaming, and then falls over dead. Now, so far, the horror of this segment is about the terrible things that people can do to each other, but we gotta remember, this is about cats, right? That's the whole idea of this whole movie. Well, now the cats want revenge. Or do they want revenge, or do they just really want the money? Like, revenge for their owner, or they're like, hey, she's gonna destroy the will and we're gonna lose all our cash. The whole segment then becomes this, well, cat and mouse game. I mean, you just gotta say it. And she's trying to survive in this house and trying to get out without these cats killing her, and these cats are vicious, and she ends up locking herself away in the food pantry or in the kitchen, which is a really good idea because then there's food in there. But what's interesting is as she's waiting it out, trying to survive without leaving the kitchen and getting killed by these cats, it lasts for days on days, and she eventually goes through all the food and then starts eating cat food and starts licking her wounds. And you kind of feel like the idea of this is, I guess she's becoming more of a cat. I think what I really like about this segment is it's actually pretty brutal and gory. Now, overall, this movie, for its time, it came out in 1977, is pretty antiquated. It's pretty behind the times because you gotta think, by this point, The Exorcist has come out, Texas Chainsaw, Black Christmas, Halloween is just about to come out the very next year, and also this is the year that Peter Cushing would be in Star Wars. So this movie just feels very behind, but at the same time, it's actually kind of gory. Like, there is a point where the housekeeper sees the old lady dead in the bed, and the cats are eating her, which everybody knows, like, cats will do if you die alone in your house and you're there for a few days. And it's a pretty savage shot of just this decomposing, rotting, eaten away corpse. And the way these cats are attacking this girl, I gotta say, it's pretty brutal, and it just goes harder than I would expect. But one thing that doesn't go hard and is actually pretty funny is when the nephew shows up at the house to finally investigate what happened to my girlfriend, who I'm promising to marry if she can get me lots of money, is he finds her dead. And she's just the most ridiculous looking dummy. Like, it's just incredibly fake. But overall, this segment is pretty good. It's a decent story. It's kind of just a classic comeuppance of bad people anthology story that's just a little more brutal than I would expect. The next segment is called Quebec, 1975. Now, it opens up with a little girl who we find out has been orphaned, and she's now going to live with her aunt's family, including her husband and their daughter, who's right around her age. One thing that I like about the kids here is the cousin is actually played by Chloe Franks, who played Christopher Lee's daughter in The House That Dripped Blood, which is probably my favorite of the Amicus anthology films, so it's cool to see her again. But something I don't like is they are both horribly dubbed.
What do you think of it, Wellington? Wellington says he likes it. Cats can't talk.
And I wish I knew the behind the scenes. I wish I could tell you why this was done. I don't understand it because, like, the rest of the movie is normal. Like, people are dubbed, but these two kids are dubbed so bad. And it kind of takes you out of the segment, but it's okay because the human story of this segment is actually really good because our main character, this girl, is obviously incredibly sympathetic. I mean, she's a poor orphaned kid, so you got to feel for her. But the aunt is so uncaring, so unfeeling, and more than taking care of this kid, she cares about taking care of her house and making sure the cat doesn't mess anything up. Because yes, the girl does come with a black cat named Wellington, and that's like the only thing she has left that she loves. And people tell the aunt this several times, like the social worker that drops the kid off is like, hey, don't get rid of this cat. This is the only thing this kid has left. And the husband advises the same thing. But this aunt just, she tries to put up with it, but she's just so mean about it. Speaking of mean, the cousin is awful. She's so mean. And she eventually realizes that she really wants a cat, but her mom won't let her, so she tries to take Wellington away.
Don't cat pound, I want it now.
and then tries to blame Wellington for a bunch of terrible things that she does so that the aunt can eventually decide to kill this cat.
Let's face it, that cat has to go.
But honey, Lucy's crazy about Wellington.
Yes, this aunt is awful, but the uncle, her husband, doesn't seem like that bad a guy, seems more caring, but he's just so weak and enabling, and he just won't really fight his wife on anything. He's saying, like, hey, we shouldn't take this cat away from this girl, and the aunt has the coldest line I've, like, ever heard.
She suffered a bigger loss.
What?
Are you kidding? Like, that is the coldest line I've ever heard. That's insane. So yeah, the husband does take the cat to go get him killed off. But while the horror of this segment does primarily come from how awful these people are, this bullying girl, this terrible aunt, it's also from witchcraft. It turns out this little girl's mom was involved in witchcraft, and she brings in books like on tarot, on ritual magic, and all this stuff. And of course, the aunt takes away those books and burns them. But when this girl finds out that her cat is going to be taken away and killed, she decides to get some revenge. Now, first of all, we don't actually have to worry about this cat because the cat somehow escapes and does come back. I don't know how, but this girl still decides to get revenge, and she builds like this pentagram on the floor. She's got candles lit, and she uses magic to turn the cousin tiny. And this is where this kind of becomes an incredible shrinking man sort of a scenario, where now this little girl has to face up against this cat. And you think what's going to happen is, one, either nothing's going to happen because this is a kid. I mean, this movie's not going to kill off a kid, right? Or maybe the cat is going to eat this little girl like a mouse. But no, something way better than either of those things. Our main character, the little orphan girl, steps on the cousin. Steps on her.
Lucy, please! Lucy! Angela!
Insane. Like, that is so crazy. I just love that. Oh man, and then the aunt comes in and just like wipes it off the floor. It is such an epic final moment. I really like this segment. Now after this segment, we go back to the wraparound. And by the way, I just gotta say, I really like Ray Milland in this movie. I think he's really fun. The way he's just arguing against the insane stories that Peter Cushing is telling him. Really, really good performance. But Peter Cushing is great too because he's taking this so seriously. This is a ridiculous character. He has to say ridiculous lines. I mean, come on, cats aren't really scary.
We are Siamese, if you please.
Okay, well, you know, sometimes cats are kind of scary. Peter Cushing just takes it all seriously. He just goes for it like he always does, and he's great. But then we go into another segment, which is called Hollywood 1936. As Peter Cushing is introducing this segment, we see a picture of Donald Pleasance, and it's specifically Donald Pleasance as Blofeld from the James Bond movies where he played Blofeld. That's kind of random. But yes, this segment is going to star Donald Pleasance, not as Blofeld, but it's really good to see Donald Pleasance in this. He's got such a fun character to play. And by the way, like I said, this is just 1 year before Halloween. So right before he did John Carpenter's Halloween, he's doing the Uncanny. And basically what he's playing here is Vincent Price. And it is not subtle at all. He's very clearly, especially when he's doing his acting stuff, because he plays an actor. This is a Hollywood segment.
At last, dear Contessa, you are beginning to see the error of your ways.
So this is a meta segment about characters making a horror movie, but I gotta call out the fact that this is supposed to be 1936, and the movie that they're doing looks nothing like horror movies from the 30s. Okay, I love horror films from the 30s. I've seen a bunch of them. I got a video on this channel on my top 20 horror movies of the 1930s. None of them look like this. This is a 60s horror film, like clearly. This looks exactly like a Vincent Price, Edgar Allan Poe film that he'd make in the 60s. I don't know why they didn't make this the 60s and why it's supposed to be 1936. Just seems like a pretty big error, but I guess they're hoping most people that watch this won't be as big of nerds as I am, and that's probably true. And my comparison of this basically being a 60s Edgar Allan Poe movie is underscored by the fact that there's a Pit and the Pendulum sequence right at the beginning where the actress who's playing the leading lady in this, who's actually Donald Pleasance's wife, I mean the character's wife, not Donald Pleasance's real life. Well, I guess I don't know for sure, but I doubt it. She actually gets literally murdered because they put the wrong blade on there, a real blade, and she dies. But it's revealed very early on that Donald Pleasance did this on purpose. He wanted to kill his wife, he wanted to get rid of her, so he could really be with his mistress, who's played by Samantha Eggar. Samantha Eggar's been in a whole lot of stuff, but the first thing that I think of with her is Curtains, which is a really weird 80s slasher movie that also co-stars her with John Vernon. And John Vernon is in this segment as the producer, so Curtains is actually an uncanny, reunion, which is pretty darn cool. And Samantha Eggar is so funny in this, who's really ditzy. Donald Pleasance quickly gets her into the wife's role, so he just brings in a replacement for his wife right away. And very clearly, he's doing all of this because she's hot, not because she's a good actress, because she's a terrible actress.
Let's try the love scene. She should be good at that.
And that leads to a lot of good comedy. This is a really fun, funny segment. But where does a cat come in? Well, it turns out the dead wife had a cat who comes back to live with Donald Pleasance. In fact, has a bunch of kittens. And Donald Pleasance is surprisingly nice about that. But of course, this cat wants revenge. And this is interesting because in all of these segments, the cats are delivering justice. Like, that's their role in all of the segments. And Peter Cushing is supposedly telling these stories to underscore how evil cats are. But it seems, judging from the stories he's telling, this is more about the evil of people, and cats are getting some just revenge. So, I like that these segments aren't just about evil cats, because I don't tend to be a big fan of evil cat movies. It doesn't always super work for me. But I like that this is about evil people doing horrible things, and the cats delivering revenge, I think, is just more fun. You hear that, Poe? I think this is better representation than you were expecting. But this segment is fun, it's funny, it's got really great performances, it's got several people dying on this movie set because they're using ridiculously dangerous props. Like, it happens more than once. What is going on with the set of this movie? I don't understand, but I really like this segment. Also, the final moment fully exists to deliver a cat's got your tongue pun, and I respect that. But let's go ahead and rate the Uncanny. Now, London 1912, which, if you remember, was about the old lady leaving her money to cats, gets a 6. I think it's pretty darn good. I think its biggest appeal comes from the fact that it's just more brutal than I was expecting, but it's also a pretty good story. Now, Quebec 1975, I'm going to give an 8. I think this is a fantastic anthology segment, like one of the great unrated ones. Maybe I'm just kind of partial to anthology segments about witchcraft. I just really love the subject. I think it's so interesting. I really like this version of it. The human story in this segment is great. Like, the main character is so sympathetic. You hate the villains in this so much, and the eventual comeuppance is so satisfying. So I'm a big, big fan. And Hollywood 1936, I'm also going to give a 6. It's fun. It's funny. Donald Pleasance is great in it. It reminds me a lot of the final segment in The House That Dripped Blood, which is about basically a Christopher Lee actor becoming a vampire. This feels very inspired by that, but it's a good version of it. I gotta say, I don't think this movie has a very good reputation. I hear about how it's bad a lot, and I just don't think it is. I think every segment is at least solid. Like, this doesn't have like the highest highs of the greatest anthologies ever, but it's consistently fun and entertaining. It's got lots of great actors. I really like this movie. Now, rating the wraparound, I'm going to give it a 7 because it's just so fun watching Peter Cushing get so stressed out about these cats and be so afraid. Ray Milland gives a pretty good comedic performance that's fun. This movie is just fun. Overall, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, which is what I gave it on Letterboxd, 3.5 out of 5. I really enjoy it. So that's my review, but if you've seen The Uncanny, let me know down in the comments below. What do you think? Am I overrating it? Seems like a lot of people don't like this. So hey, maybe so, but I have a great time watching this. Now, if you want to see more of my Horror Anthology reviews, check out this playlist right down here. I've got all of them over there, or this video for just, hey, more good times. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to have another top 10 list coming out very soon, so make sure you hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time.